Hello and welcome. It's episode 7 of Dad Made a Nerd. Welcome back. Today we're going to have some conversations about the new season of Daredevil, which is just finished on Disney Plus, and we're also going to be talking about the new trailer that's landed for Fantastic Four. Let's get into it. How are you, Jay? How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Excited to talk Daredevil. Fantastic Four trailer came out recently too. A few other trailers, but
And you
I'm
binged it quite
excited.
quickly, haven't you, as well? I think you've been working through the season 3 of the Netflix, and then you've
Yeah,
literally
we'll get
binged
into
it.
that though when we talk about the show. But
Should we
first,
start
do we
off
want
talking
to
about Fantastic
tackle
Four?
the Fan Four trailer?
It's only come out this last couple of days, hasn't it? So it tells us a bit more than what we saw in the teaser trailer that came out a couple of weeks ago. And this is one of the films that we said is in our top five most anticipated films. I think we both put this in. So previous episode, people might want to watch back and look at our most anticipated films. So it's on there. So one that we've both been looking out for. Let's talk about the trailer. We both had different views about the look and feel of what we're seeing from Fantastic Four. So
Hmm.
probably let's get into it. What are you thinking about the trailer, Jay?
Yeah. So far, watching the trailer, it's a better trailer than the first one in my opinion. We see a bit more of Shala Labor's Silver Surfer, who's going to be, a major character in this film, the Herald of Galactus, basically the messenger who comes to say, just heads up, your planet's about to get eaten by this dude I work for. So we know that's going to be the case. It's confirmed now that Vanessa Kirby's Sue Storm is pregnant with who we can most assume is going to be Nathaniel Richards, their first son, a very, very powerful mutant, I believe, in the Marvel universe, and who I think will be the reason Galactus is coming to Earth, because Nathaniel Richards, where Galactus can absorb and needs to eat worlds in order to sustain and keep the balance across the universe, Nathaniel Richards actually has the power, and this ties into the Secret Wars comic event, to create worlds. So they're kind of marked and linked throughout the comics in that way. So I can assume that's the reason Galactus will be the threat and the reason he's coming to Earth in the trailer. But as a whole, the trailer, um, I still have the same gripes I did before. It seems to be a bit colored down in terms of color tones. If you compare it to, say, Fallout that came out last year, that show, very similar aesthetically in terms of it's a landscape with these bright blue characters who wear blue suits. And that just is a bit more of a vibrant show. So far, Matt Shackman's making this film. And I feel like you can still see that he's come from TV, where he made WandaVision. All that said, very excited for the film. The Thing looks great. I'm excited to see what the cast do, where the story goes, how it ties into Doomsday, and then Secret Wars Beyond. What were your thoughts on the trailer?
Well, I think I said this last time as well. The fact that it looks original is pretty good. So I think they could have easily gone with the trope of Marvel films that are starting to look and feel quite samey. I recently, last couple of days, watched the new Captain America film, and you just kind of get to the end of it and it's a bit meh. But I think with this, what you've got is something that looks a bit fresh. It looks a bit original, and I think that's going to entice people in. You've got this kind of modern kind of stuff going on whilst still the very kind of 60s style look and feel, which looks a bit interesting. I think the actors look like they're really cool. Female Silver Surfer, first time we've seen Silver Surfer in the in on film since back in the 90s when it was in the second one of Fantastic. You shaking your head at there, but it
That
wasn't.
wasn't
It
in
was
the
in.
90s.
I bet it was. Well, maybe early 2000s actually, mid to early 2000s.
Okay, no, all right. Give me your guess. When do you think the first Fantastic Four film, I guess technically the second,
You're talking about the
with
which one?
Ian
That
Griffith,
yeah,
and Chris Evans as Johnny Storm. When do you think the first Fantastic Four came out, Dad?
the first one of those,
Yeah.
2002.
Okay, well, you just assumed they were from the 90s, so why do you think the first one came out in 2002?
Because when you said it, I knew I was wrong.
It came out in 2005, Dad.
What, the first one?
Yep, and then Rise of the Silver Surfer, its sequel, came out in 2007.
2007. Wow.
Hmm.
You were
Wow. So
born.
really, Chris Evans went like 2 years after that
Yeah.
film before he came in as Captain America.
Straight in as
He
Captain
was
America.
on that Marvel train for a while.
He
Okay.
was, and it was funny because I mean he was such a different character to go from Johnny Storm to Captain America is actually quite a big leap in terms of the statue of the character. Um,
Mm,
but no, my point is since that second film, obviously back in the 2000s, it's the first time we've seen the Silver Surfer. Pretty key character in the MCU as well. It feels like it's going to be. You can certainly get from this latest trailer that it feels like it's going to link into where we're going to around Secret Wars. My guess would be you're going to have Galactus at the end of it, potentially kind of pretty much destroying the world, and it'll somehow link into what the reason why they're going to have to go from whatever universe they're in there into more of where we are in the MCU. But it,
yeah.
my excitement comes from it looks a bit different. The style, it looks styled quite cool. It looks good. The actors clearly good upcoming actors that we like in a lot of things. I absolutely love the Reed Richards character. So I think it's all up there. And I think the Thing doesn't look weird as well. I think the Thing's a quite a difficult character to get right in kind of film and TV, but I think he looks okay as well. So
Yeah.
you struggle sometimes to get. I mean, you read different comics and he's different sizes. Sometimes he's massive and huge like the Hulk. Sometimes he's like the same size as a normal person. But it looks like proportionally they've got that better. I don't know. I'm excited for it. I think it
Yeah.
looks good.
I think, and this is an issue I think with superhero genre films at the moment, is because they're so successful, but they're also going through a bit of, I guess, a rough patch. There, there's just like two pockets of the internet, and Superman is by far experiencing the same thing. Of people that are just devout, everything is gospel, supporting this and everything about it, and then people that just want to tear it down for the smallest things. And you've definitely seen that with the Fantastic Four. I think there's positives and negatives to it all. I think having this in its own universe is a really cool idea because you don't have to worry about the burden of a cinematic universe weighing down and like how do they fit in the 60s aesthetic. But then I also think the joy of having a cinematic universe is that you have a big sandbox where finally we get to see the Fantastic Four interact with Avengers and Spider-Man and all these other characters. And don't get me wrong, that will be coming in Doomsday, but also I think that's adding the severe burden of now they're from a different universe and not the home universe we're used to. I don't know if that means that Galactus is going to win and destroy their universe, which leads them to flee to the MCU 616. But still, that's a heavy weight on those characters to suddenly have just so we can get them flying around with Spider-Man. I do wish that they went against this 60s aesthetic, that Peyton Reed, the guy who made the Ant-Man films, was the one pitching and really pushing. He wanted to do his Fantastic Four in this 60s aesthetic, set in the 60s. And obviously he didn't do the film. Matt Shackman's doing it, which I think is good because no offense to Peyton Reed, no offense to him. I'm just not a big fan of his films. I think there's lots of issues. They just personally don't mesh with me. Ant-Man was good, but that's because the majority of it was done by Edgar Wright. Just saying, Ant-Man and the Wasp sucked. And so I do worry about this Fantastic Four having to, when they are in the MCU, be in a universe where they know they've lost an entire universe that they've lived in, and
That's the first time we've
feels a
seen
bit
him as well.
weight.
So we won't have actually, but potentially based on some of our predictions of what we just said there, the first interaction with this family who are supposed to be so amazing is going to be that they fail. But
Yeah,
we
but
just don't know.
I
We
think
don't
that's
know. Do we?
great.
It might not be the
Yeah.
case, but
I mean, who knows?
both what we
Secret
predicted.
Wars was used as a big reset in the comics where they basically just want all the characters they want just to be in the same universe. They just smashed them together, rewrote reality. So a similar thing may happen in Secret Wars where no one's none the wiser. I feel weird about that being the case because doesn't that kind of rectify everything that we'll be seeing in this film? We don't know. We just won't know till the trailer or the film comes out. But another soft point, as well as like the Thing, people kind of hating and loving the Thing's design, is Silver Surfer, who we finally see in this trailer. Do you have any opinions off the bat
Well,
Julia
you're
Gardner's
getting
playing her.
you get into this dialogue, don't you? Of like, oh, it's a woman or it's a man. Does it really matter? I don't think it really matters too much. I mean, you saw it with like Doctor Who. There's such a big hoo-ha about can the Doctor be a woman? Blah blah blah. You see it when people talk about James Bond. Can't you? Couldn't you have a female James Bond? Some, and there will always be people who just say, don't change it, leave as it is. I think Silver Surfer is such a character that actually does it really matter if they're male or female? Probably not, to be honest. The backstory isn't about nothing that's particularly male orientated. It's just about a world that's been destroyed. So I think I'm okay with that. I think character looks good. It's crazy how it doesn't look all, apart from the fact that it's a male and a female. I saw a image next to what they looked at like in the second film next to the one now, and actually they look pretty much the same. They're just a shiny silver person.
To say it's been a few decades, like the aesthetic of it, like the CGI of it, it doesn't look much different. It looks virtually the same. I wish they kind of got a bit more of a hair flowing, a bit more like cosmic kind of comic book look. It feels a bit bland to me. Again, that's part of my gripe with this trailers that we've seen so far. However, it's interesting you're mentioning being played by a woman, and that is a large part of the controversy around this film, is that why the hell is Silver Surfer a woman? Well, this is a different universe, which is important to take into account, because Julia Gardner is credited to be playing Shala Ball, Silver Surfer. Now, if you know anything about the character Silver Surfer, the typical male version we've seen, which is voiced by Jeffrey Wright in the 2007 film, the one most known from the comics, who the Hulk beats the crap out of on Planet Hulk, like that is Norrin Rad, Silver Surfer.
Yeah.
So they are different characters technically. So there's also the argument of, whoa, you toxic people who hate the idea of a woman being this character. Don't worry, it's a different character. We're cool. You'll get your Norrin Rad eventually, which is fine. I just feel bad for Julia Gardner now, because doesn't that almost means like, oh yeah, you were like the precursor to the real Silver Surfer we want. You're not like the proper one. And so I feel she's a very good actress. Like, I'm sure she'll do a great job in this role. So I feel a bit bad for her if that is the case. I think
interesting how similar they use that character as well in this film compared to the last one, because you typically get, and you've seen it in the comics quite a bit as well, actually they're able to kind of bring on board the kind of Silver Surfer who in the end kind of helps them, but then I suppose we're watching a series of films from the MCU that's a complete different generation of people that probably even watched the Fantastic Four films as well. I mean, how many people really will have, certainly people my age will have watched it, but I bet a lot of people won't have even bothered watching the original ones.
Interesting you mentioned that, because actually recently I was talking to my friends and stuff about who are, all very similar, same age as me. We were talking about the Daredevil, because I was talking to them about Daredevil. Finale's just come out, about the Ben Affleck film of that one. And I actually got in a bit, not an argument, but a heated discussion where we were talking about that, and my friend goes, "Oh, that film's rubbish. Like, it looks so bad. His suit looks awful." And I was like, "Oh, have you seen it? You've seen it then?" And he goes, "No." But I've seen videos of people talking about it on TikTok and stuff. And I think that speaks a lot to kind of my generation, is that a lot of our information, and this is from lots of conversations with lots of people, where they get their information so much from other people on the internet. We could be called major hypocrites right now. We're recording a podcast where we're talking about our opinions of things, which is what I'm currently complaining about. But you understand my point. Like, I think it's important to go and gather our own opinion. And I was also saying, for context, that Daredevil, that Fantastic Four, this was early days of superhero medium. When Ben Affleck showed up in a full red Daredevil outfit, that was cool as hell at the time. No one had seen that before. He's in a Daredevil costume. Now we look back and we go, "Woof, it's a bit rough." But
it's funny you should say that, because one of your favorite films when you were younger, and you're not going to like me saying this, was the Green Lantern
film. Thomas the Tank Engine.
Oh no, you did have that. Thomas and the Magic Railroad. You literally.
It were my two things.
It was VHS, which gives you an idea of the timescale. But you wore that video out. But then you absolutely loved Green Lantern as well. And now, looking back, if you went back in time, 10. I think that's probably a point where you'd say, that's a point I want to go back in time and take that DVD off that kid and tell him no.
Yeah. I had all the action figures. I was 10 at the time. I rewatched that film a few years ago. Oh my goodness, how ignorantly blissful being a child is, where I don't mind that he looks completely naked and painted green, because I go, ooh, magic alien green suit, make, green train smash into bad guy. Like, that's all my brain thought of when I was 10. I was like, oh, it's a superhero film. It's cool as hell. But yeah, looking back on it, there's definitely it does not hold up at all.
I love the idea of you going back and watching. Oh, the other couple of months ago, I watched Thomas and the Magic Railroad. It's, by the way, it's got It's got Alec Baldwin in it. It's got quite a big cast. Alec Baldwin's in it.
I don't remember a thing of that film though.
Honestly, it was your favorite film growing up. But then also the other thing is about. I know you say about your friends not watching some of the films. Some of your friends also hadn't watched Goonies and some absolute classics. I think the way we brought you up from being young was always. There's a series of films that in your life you have to watch, and if you don't watch these when you're younger,
maybe that's a future episode. Maybe we make a future episode. We have a list of essential movies that every human being has to have seen. Because you're right, I do have friends that drive me mental because they've never seen these essential classics, which are just such fundamentals of my childhood and growing up. And I biasly think should be fundamentals for everybody.
I think they should. I think that's a good point, because I think some of them actually should be part of the national curriculum and education. What are we doing this week? Well, we're going to watch Goonies because it's part of the curriculum. That's just absolutely should be on there.
Maybe we'll have
that might be our next. We'll call it our next one, I think, Jay.
We'll have a segment. We'll call it mandatory movies or something.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And then we'll what we might do is if we get the campaign going, we might go and go to the Houses of Parliament and try and put a bill in to say these films need to be watched by children.
I go, I'm adding a new GCSE.
I tell you, you would have loved GCSE film.
Yeah.
Everyone actually, there's the one subject in school actually people might like.
Oh yeah.
Right, okay. No, that sounds good. So we talked a bit about Fantastic Four there. We're both excited about it. It's coming out in July, isn't it? So we're going to be talking about it probably a little bit more, see some more trailers as it comes out, but it's looking exciting, isn't it? So
most definitely. I am optimistically enthused.
Yeah. I think we're both on that train, aren't we? Sounds good. Should we talk about one of the main things we wanted to talk about today, which was Daredevil Born Again? The trailer, the finale episode landed Wednesday. So only recently. We're obviously recording this on a Friday, so it's only been out for 2 days. We both watched it. We both watched the whole series. Let's get into it and let's talk about what do we think. We just, for people who are listening, there probably is likely to be some spoilers in what we're going to say as well.
We'll start off in non-spoiler territory and then we'll give a little headline. We'll say, right, let's talk about spoilers. So let's just get into a bit of context first. So the synopsis for Daredevil Born Again is Matt Murdock finds himself on a collision course with Wilson Fisk when their past identities begin to emerge. Now, Daredevil Born Again is a show which has been in the making for many years now. And it is kind of the season 4 to the Daredevil show that came out on Netflix, which last came out over 7 years ago. So we've not had any Daredevil content for about 7 years now. We did have a Punisher season 2, which was 6 years ago, but that didn't necessarily tie in except seeing Frank Castle, John Bernthal's Punisher. So this is the first time we're seeing Daredevil properly reintegrated in his own show into the MCU. They've been doing it slowly. We've seen him appear in She-Hulk and Echo and
Spider-Man.
Home. Yep. No Way Home.
No Way Home.
Yeah, and then also we saw Wilson Fisk first introduced all the way back in Hawkeye in that show, which was kind of the start of bringing these Netflix era characters back into it. I also think it's really important to acknowledge that over the course of making the show, they had major rewrites and major reshoots to totally reconfigure the show to be a proper spiritual successor to the Netflix era shows. Originally, we weren't getting any Foggy Nelson, any Karen Page. Vanessa was recast. And so when they had the rewrites, they had to reintegrate a lot of stuff and move things around to really make it a successor and not a reboot. of what we loved about the Netflix shows. And I think that's really important going in, because one of my main gripes about this show, which for the most part I really loved, was that there are episodes that feel very stitched together, and you can tell they were part of the reshoots to reintegrate this old era new footage with the show they already had made. But going in, spoiler-free thoughts overall, what did you think of Daredevil Born Again?
So, well, just to add some of that context. So, Born Again is a kind of comic book arc that came out in 1986. Frank Miller, one of my favorite artists and writers from the 80s. I think as soon as he got past the 90s, some of the stuff didn't necessarily land. So we've talked in the past about some of the Batman stuff of his that I really liked. Artwork by David Mazzucchelli. And that is about his descent into insanity, and it's all linked to the Kingpin, and it's his struggle to gain a new life. But the one thing that frustrates me a little bit is, and I know that they did a lot of that story came out.
I was going to say, I think it's important to mention,
one, didn't it? Yeah,
because I've approached this show very different to you. So I think my opinions may be slightly more positive, because you've been watching this week to week. I was quickly binging and rewatching all of the Netflix Daredevil seasons, which I think is really helpful for me, because there are a lot of deep cuts in the show, which I was surprised at. They're really linked to specific parts of that show that I didn't remember. Also, I saw the direct, really high quality 3 seasons there, and then Born Again. So the comparison, I think, is a bit sharper for me. But also, I treated the show as a binge because of that. And I think this show benefits from being a binge in watching episode after episode instead of having to wait a week. I just don't know if it had that longevity written into the show. What I did like again as a comic was mostly adapted in season 3 of Daredevil. Now, they called this show Born Again because when they announced it, it was going to be almost like a reboot. You know, Daredevil's Born Again, still played by Charlie Cox, still got Vincent D'Onofrio as Kingpin, but it was going to be a new iteration of the character. Since they've restructured the show, that's not the case at all, really, or is they're attempting for it not to be, which kind of makes this an empty name. I guess it's just Born Again on Disney.
That was one of the things I was going to mention why I said that. I get really annoyed when some of the films and some of the kind of different films or the series kind of take names from like really kind of important comics and then just don't do the story that's in the comics. Like, and I know it draws people in, doesn't it? So loads of people will be like, you know, that's really tie in and probably encourages people to buy the comics. But it's also a bit disingenuous as well, as if like you couldn't think of any better names, so you'll take them from these really good comic book stories, but then not even bother using any of the source material. Now I know you've got to be creative with it as well, but so part of my frustration was it didn't tie in. I mean, if you think about like Born Again comic book series, you've got Karen who becomes like a drug addict and is struggling like being on heroin and stuff like that, and Daredevil's kind of really struggling with his life and
again this is homeless and all that kind of stuff. 3, though.
Well, I know it's kind of been done, but then, you know, don't call it Born Again then. But the title, to be fair, does time well. What I would say is Charlie Cox is an absolutely brilliant Daredevil, and I can completely understand why you would go with him in the MCU, because you can tell how much he cares about that Daredevil character, which I think is really good. And I think the other thing I thought was really good is the way certain episodes did it, but not all of them did it. This kind of how they kind of juxtaposed the Kingpin with Charlie Cox in some of their experiences. I thought the way that they did that was really quite good. We'll get onto some of the bits of spoilers, but I think there are a couple of episodes, probably like 3 episodes, which I thought were really good episodes that made you want more. There was some in the middle that maybe didn't land as well, and I think the finale for me was one of those where I built up to watching the last episode and then I just wasn't overly satisfied by that, but it did make me want to watch. You know that they're in the middle of filming season 2. The character is ace. I really like the character, really like Charlie Cox as him. I think the Kingpin character is awesome as well, to be honest. Those two were really good. I think there were bits where you always kind of left you wanting a little bit more. More.
Interesting. Yeah.
But so overall, really good series. Like, definitely recommend people watch it because I think it's one of the best MCU series there's been for me. and kind of stands out from some of the others in the way that it's styled. But it was just maybe certainly wanted more around the finale. It just kind of didn't really come to the ending that I wanted it to.
Interesting. Yeah, I found that Daredevil Born Again is the first Disney Plus show that is embracing the fact that this is serialized television. This is a TV show that is linking into a future season, as opposed to all the other Disney Plus shows, very much feeling like, okay, cool, we've got a 6-episode deep dive into this character that's almost like a 6-hour movie, which is going to eventually tie into all of their movie connections and whatnot. And a lot of that always feels unsatisfying because they spend too little time trying to tackle too many things. Daredevil Born Again very much acknowledges that this is a show, and will have a future season and set up things for the future, and isn't afraid to leave kind of cliffhangers. I didn't feel as strongly as you did about the finale. I was quite happy with it. I like the way things are set up. I really was excited at the end to seeing Josie's bar. I was really hoping to see Jessica Jones or Luke Cage there, maybe not Iron Fist, and that didn't quite happen. I did see the director said that this is supposed to be a low point at the end of the show. I've realized we've kind of gone into spoiler territory there, haven't we? No, I haven't majorly spoiled anything. That's fine.
No, I don't think
so. We don't see Jessica Jones in the show, which is fine. I don't know if we'll see her in the future season. I think it'd be good if we did. And I am more optimistic about season 2. Season 1, they were making this show and had to restructure everything to make it tie into the Netflix show to be like a new season of that. And because of that, you can see the parts where it's stitched together with the old show trying to merge with the new things they were adding and trying to compile them on top of each other. They're making season 2 fully aware that this is a follow-on to all of this. And it's going to get dark and gritty. It's going to acknowledge the Netflix era stuff. And because of that, I think the show's going to be way stronger in season 2. Yeah. My gripes with season 1 are that I agree. The first half of episodes are nowhere near as strong as the second half for me. And I think that's largely because you're doing a superhero show where all the time Matt and Wilson Fisk have always been paralleled with each other. Every season 1, season 3, and this season, they're always having a parallel story where we're seeing them going through a similar kind of crisis that matches with each other. And that's what makes them so compelling opposites. Like that conversation in episode 1 in the diner was amazing. And it outlined the characters and their motivations really well.
Yeah.
And so you're seeing our two main characters giving up their corresponding lives of crime or vigilantism. And it takes a very long time for them to get back into that world that they come from, because they're going to he's eventually going to put on the Daredevil suit again. He has to. But the show, because of that, becomes this slower, almost legal drama that never truly goes into the interesting legal dramas that the show did originally. And it forfeits a lot of the action. Yeah. And because of that, the first few episodes don't seem as strong. Purely because you've not got that action or superhero genre to match it. And this isn't quite a spoiler, but we know that we're introduced in the show to the White Tiger. And I was hoping the vigilantes that were introduced to outside of Daredevil were going to fill the gap of less Daredevil. Yeah. And that never happened. We just never got to see much of that.
Let's go into spoiler from here.
Yeah, okay, cool.
People, there's going to be spoilers.
Forward, spoilers.
So my 2 bits of feedback from spoiler point of view is that we talk about this kind of, he brings in his kind of vigilante kind of hit squad kind of thing, which I think is quite cool. But then you never see them do anything. They don't actually ever take down any vigilantes at any point. So I always thought it'd be really easy to kind of be able to kind of tease in, even if they don't do it. Like you could easily do something where it shows some of the vigilantes. I think they lost that. And then the other side of it for me was, for the second half of the series, you forget that he's even a lawyer. He doesn't actually do anything to do with any of the legal stuff. But actually, part of the episode with the White Tiger when he's in the court case is the things like how he uses some of his powers to be a solicitor to be able to hear people's heartbeats, know where they're lying and stuff like that. That's part of some of the charm of the character. So you didn't really get seeing him being you saw him being Matt Murdock, kind of broken and obviously trying to build himself back up, but you didn't see him doing any of the solicitor stuff or lawyer stuff in the background. And then it
Yeah.
was the fact that we didn't see. So it's like all this, oh, we're bringing down vigilantism and stuff like that, but no, you didn't see any of it. And actually, it could have done that. I think the changes that they made to link it to the first one and bring Karen and Foggy back. I mean, I loved Foggy as a character. I thought. That had to have improved it, because if they hadn't have done that, I think the series would have been worse off for it.
They're the heart of the show.
Yeah.
And you can tell from the opening of episode 1, you get a few moments where they're, you're seeing from a distance, but you're seeing them leaving their work, which we saw at the end of season 3 when they make the new company, Nelson, Murdoch, and Paige. You see them just walking down the street together, having a laugh. And you can tell these are actors who are so close. They spent years and years working together, forming these bonds between these characters, and that instantly shows just by seeing them on screen together. So as soon as the episode starts, I was surprised that Foggy died right at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then Karen just went up and left. So you lost that connection, which is such a shame. But I am optimistic we're going to get Karen in the next season. It was purely because she wasn't in the original write of the show. So I'm kind of overlooking that. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt there. That's difficult.
But it didn't feel empty, though, at the end, because the link at the end towards the fact that when he died, he was obviously celebrating, and that had a big impact on the end of it. I thought it didn't feel empty because the end, there was an arc there where actually the end of it actually kind of linked into the beginning, which from that point of view, I thought that was good. It actually it meant something. It wasn't just like a hollow, killed him off for no reason. I thought that was better. It could have been worse, that. But I do think Frank Castle as
John Berthenol's Punisher.
We could have had more of it, because he's just. I mean, the action scene in the finale is really good, but it almost didn't give you enough of that action scene, because he is cool. He's so cool, but
are you aware they're making a Punisher special on Disney Plus?
Yeah, it's a Christmas special, isn't it? Is it the Christmas one?
I don't know for certain. I think there's rumors around it. It may be confirmed. I just know there's going to be a special set around his Punisher, which I think is great. I think so. One of the most incredible episodes of Daredevil, which blew my mind, was in season 3, episode 4 or 5, I believe, where Netflix are known, and Daredevil very much is known for these one takes, and we'll get into the episode 1 oneer in a bit, because I want your opinions on it. But most famously, in episode 2 of Daredevil, there's this single take down a hallway where he's just beating guys up, and it's one of the most incredible action scenes done. It's just brilliant, and I think why it's so good is its simplicity. Season 2 have another one, which people say isn't as good. I think is equally as amazing, where it's a oneer, but he's fighting guys as he's falling like down a stairwell. Season 2 have an entire half of it, like majority of an episode, where he's going from Matt Murdock going into prison to talk to a guy, where it's an entire breakout where he's getting trapped in the prison trying to get killed by Fisk's men, and it's this brutal just battle to try and get out of this prison. And so he leaves the taxi and it follows him in. He does all this stuff being a lawyer, and then he has to turn into Daredevil or Matt and make his way out. And it's just an incredible grounded, just gritty fight. And that's where Matt's at his best, because he's unlike Batman, who very much is the best fighter. Matt can take a beating, and that's where he's the best. Like, he just doesn't let himself fall down. So I would love if the Punisher special is just Frank just say in a prison break, just trying to just get somewhere or get to someone, and it's just this brutal, endless battle, almost John Wick style. I think that's where he'd be best.
I mean, you do get some of that sense of that kind of John Wick, just the fight scenes. I mean, even like in the end credit scene where he breaks that guy's arm is pretty cool, because I'm thinking, well, you're still in a cage. Like, great that you broke his arm, but no, I think the difference with Daredevil is he seems to get the crap beaten out of him a hell of a lot, but he just keeps getting up.
He's a roller,
and he's just. But I do think that's where Charlie Cox is. He's such a good Daredevil. It's so hard to imagine anybody else I mean,
And
it's
and
always
I
going to be the case,
really
but you can't imagine
appreciate
anybody else because he just loves that character and it just comes through, doesn't it? And the same with Punisher. He's just, gets
he
shot in
is
the hand and
Punisher.
stuff. And he's like,
John Berthenol is an amazingly good looking guy, and he just, you look at a comic book drawing of Punisher, and that's just his face,
yeah,
which is so weird. But yeah, going back to the Wanners and this one take, what episode 1 of the show hit it off with a ambitious one take fight scene. Obviously there would be some mask cuts everywhere, like in the haze and stuff, but that's where Foggy dies and they have a fight from Josie's all the way up to the roof, where he throws
yeah, throws
Bullseye
it
off
down.
the roof. What was your opinion of that opening sequence?
Oh, I mean, it's funny because when I was watching it, I was trying to remember what had happened previously before it, which was a little bit, discombobulating in the sense that you've just gone from, comes in right at the start of it, and you're thinking, wait a minute, what? Can't remember almost what's happened before. But the scene itself, the fight scene, is really cool. I think it's good. I think it it was difficult because I think when I was watching it, I was also thinking, wait a minute, I can't remember what's happened with some of these characters. So I think that's where you come in after watching season 3 of Daredevil, then coming into it, you probably wouldn't have got that. But I was almost starting to watch it thinking, wait a minute, I can't remember what happened previously before. And it distracted a little bit away from that scene. But I mean,
But I mean, the
the
fight
scene's cool.
itself, what was your opinion of the fight?
I thought it was okay. I mean, I'm trying to think now. It wasn't something where I was like, "Oh my god, this is absolutely." I mean, when he threw him off the end at the end was pretty good.
That
I
was
mean,
great.
we've just had Adolescence come out as well. So Adolescence, a series on Netflix. It's just 4 episodes
One
of
takes.
continuous one
Yeah.
takes. So maybe I'd watched that
One is.
before I watched this as well. So maybe I was just bored of one takes because you get a little. Yeah, I quite like Adolescence. I'm not really sure what the hype is, if I'm honest. I didn't.
Also,
People keep saying you should watch it in schools, and I'm like, well, if you want kids to go to sleep, then maybe. But but it's okay. Don't get me wrong. But I don't understand what some of the hype is around it. But I thought it was okay. What's your view? I get that you've got a really strong view about this fight scene, Jay.
yeah, I want. It was quite a big point of contention. They wanted to start off the series with a big show of force, to show that we could do what they could do. Another show coming out at the moment, The Studio, episode 2, is about the making of Wanna, and the whole episode itself is also a one take, and I just think it was brilliantly done in that. But so we've had a lot of Wannas, we've had a lot of big fights and stuff throughout the Netflix era Daredevil stuff, and in this they have, you can clearly see that he is a CG double, and I think it's cool that his stick has the grappling hook on it and stuff, and we get to see him swing around. We never felt like we needed that in the Netflix era stuff because they couldn't really afford it, so they couldn't do it. And it almost shows that, like, you can't do it there. It doesn't look believable. And if you can't afford, just don't do it. We don't need it. We don't need it. Like, they do it well in like the last episode where you see him jump out and then fire out the thing, and we don't actually have to see, a CGI animated version of their body swing, because that's not possible in real life, and that's okay. And I found the fight itself it never had the grit. And this is my issue with the show as a whole, is not only does it not have the depth and true complexity and clever writing as the Netflix show does, it's not quite at that standard. It's still very good, but it's not quite hit that level yet. But also, as a color tone watching it, going straight from the Netflix shows, it's too clean. That's a weird gripe for me to have. But everything's really bright and crisp and clean. And the Netflix show had almost like a higher film grain quality to it, where there was more grit to it. Another part of the show that I really, and this is a bit of a different thing, but that didn't mesh with me, was the BB Urich stuff. So we met Urich in season 1 of Netflix, and one of the saddest deaths in that show was when Wilson Fisk killed him at the end. And this show introduces his niece, who's a junior reporter. She had a minor storyline that just went nowhere for me. I don't understand, and so throughout the first few episodes, the first half of the season, there's these transitions from scene to scene of showing just like reporter footage of civilians talking about stuff that never added anything to the show. There were no footage or interviews that had any true like comments about anything that added any complexity or story to the show. And also, we're wanting to believe this kid is a reporter. We've never seen her do any reporting yet. All of her footage was just of people reacting to what's going on, of stuff we already knew. So that was a major part of the storyline and one subplot of this show that really didn't land for me.
Yeah.
What was your thoughts on that?
Well, Ben Ulrich was a big part of the actual comic book series as well. And actually, I think I said I've read a load of Spider-Man from back around the kind of late 2000s, and he's a really big part of it because actually J. Jonah Jameson becomes mayor of New York and stuff like that. So yeah, it's kind of that same point where I mentioned about, you don't see some of the vigilante fights and stuff like that. Also, you don't really get to know her that much either. So it felt maybe this is area for it to kind of expand in series 2.
Yeah, well, we have another season.
You can't do everything, can you? But I mean, it's one of those where, if it leaves you wanting a bit more, and there's some places where there's more, it's not a bad thing. I think when it comes down to like the heart of the show, I thought Daredevil was cool, and the favorite episodes for me, I really like the bank robbery scene. So episode 5.
Episode 5 was brilliant, and you know what?
So good
as well. The way so we see Kamala Khan's father, Yusuf, working in the bank, and he's just a fun character that appears there. And you know what? I really liked his involvement, and I'm okay with not having seen Miss Marvel in this show just yet. That's okay. It does get to the point where such major things are happening toward the end of the show, like time curfews and stuff like that, where it is a case of, we know so many superheroes in New York. It's getting weirder and weirder now. Films, it was an issue when these big things happen and you go, there's so many superheroes in this world now. Where are they? And now the shows are going to such a high scale as well, whereas this is the whole of New York. We know so many characters, and they name drop. Well, kind of.
That's what I mean about the vigilante thing. They could have expanded that more, couldn't they? And actually shown.
And I get it is a budgetary
some of those
thing.
nods, because you're right. I think part of the reason why the bank episode was good is because you're like, oh, Kamala Khan's dad. It's not a main character, like a little bit like they've done with in what's it called, Shang-Chi, is it? Shang-Chi?
Yeah, Shang-Chi.
Yeah. The Tony Slattery kind of character, where it's just not a key character, but like something that creates a nod to another part of the MCU. Just it's helpful when you got that. And then the other episode for me
I do really like
Art for Art's Sake, the one where you've got what's called the main bad villain guy. What's he called? The
Muse,
and the fight scene at the end where he kind of jumps in the window, because you get to see the actual vigilante task force actually doing something. And you get to see him as Daredevil, but the bank scene is good because you've got Matt Murdock being a really cool Matt Murdock without the need for, it's almost kind of replaced the need of what he might do in a courtroom. He's just being really savvy as a blind person that everybody overlooks because he's blind, and therefore,
the way
that's just cool.
Weaponizes that is great. He did it a lot in the Netflix show as well, and it's really funny. And he did that a lot in the bank episode, and that episode, really good bottle episode of just like, this is Matt in his day-to-day life, and like you can look at that and be like, oh, does it add a lot to the show? I think it does. It shows the strain of him really falling back into this Daredevil life. But I think as an episode as well, it's just really well done. It was so contained. It didn't have all that weird news footage from BB Urich. From episode 5 onwards was when the show really built out for me, and it got really much stronger, and it tied into the MCU a bit more. And I really like this subtle kind of connected world they're making with this Daredevil. We've got Yusuf, Kamala Khan kind of name dropped, and her father there, and then we get the swordsman from Hawkeye is this like political figure that we see later as well, and so we know he's trapped by the Kingpin now, which is fun. And so like just building out slowly, I think is really fun. I would really love if a future season, like they have a Defenders S style, because Kingpin this is a big deal. This is a big change. And with the amount of parallels that this show has with Wilson Fisk, who I think is the best treated character in the show, toward the end of the show, Matt Murdock very much lost a lot of agency in his character slightly. Just didn't have much going on. But Wilson Fisk consistently, and Vanessa, is what the showrunners to me seem like they understand what they want to do with those characters more than anybody else. and it is very political. You know, the way it ties into Trump and all of that. Like it's obvious connections we're seeing there to real political figures, and I think that's going really well. I think the handle the show is doing with that is really strong. That I would love if, and it's probably not in the cards, but all I want to do is see Spider-Man and Daredevil together. But if
Yeah.
they could have like even a movie set in New York or some kind of series of like almost No Man's Land style in the blackout or whatever, they're hunted by Fisk's law against vigilantes. A team up between Luke Cage, Daredevil, Spider-Man, Ms. Marvel, Hawkeye, like Haley Steinfeld, like all of that would be so brilliant because they're all in New York. And
Yeah. You have to see Spider-Man and Kingpin together, don't we? Can I ask
yeah,
you about one thing I thought was probably worthy of conversation? When Kingpin kills the guy in the last episode and crushes his head. And
Space, yeah,
now
the
there's
commissioner.
always been a thing in the past, hasn't there, about Marvel and MCU, how gory it is and the blood, and we've had it a lot when they were bringing out Deadpool, of whether or not Marvel would allow them to be able to make jokes or allow them to do that. I thought that was, I mean, that was quite a
Excellent.
bold scene in the way that he did it, but
Well,
that was
I even
shocking.
found it
That was a
shocking with
shocking
the
scene.
character of Muse. Like, how did you find Muse
Yeah.
being as villain in this
Well, I liked him, but I
show?
was almost surprised it kind of finished over
Yeah, he
like
died
two
quick.
episodes.
I loved it.
I thought it was going to
It
go
was
on,
shocking.
rumble on for a bit longer, but actually, I quite liked. I mean, that's what you say. The good thing about a serial TV show is you can have a storyline that spans over like two or three, 4 episodes, and it makes sense and it fits, doesn't it, really well? But I was almost surprised that it happens. Like when he was being interviewed by Vanessa as a kind of in that therapy session, I thought that was really cool scene because she was really scared. It was quite frightening, but I think I was almost kind of surprised that went quite quick. I thought it was going to last a bit longer over
Yeah.
the rest of the
I
series,
mean,
but
but
it's
I
good.
think a shocking turn like that was really what thrust the show ahead as well, because Muse dying almost in story, it helped elevate and escalate Mayor Fisk's ability to weaponize vigilantism and to
Yeah,
paint Muse as a vigilante so they can just kill vigilantes. And I know you said that we didn't really get to see his task force doing much. I think largely because a lot of that we've been seeing from set footage for season 2 is being set up to really be the threat in season 2. But I do like the little glimpses we see of, like when they just shot that kid. That was so shocking, and then pulled his hoodie,
yeah,
his like
yeah.
beanie down and said, "Oh well, he's a vigilante." I thought stuff like that is brilliant, and that really harnesses the grit that you want to see from this show.
But it is, how does that then transcend across some of the other New York based Marvel films that we're going to see in series over
Yeah,
the next?
I'm
Because you get the sense of actually we'll probably end up be disappointed. A Spider-Man film will come out and we'll be like,
It's not going
probably
to
before the
acknowledge it
next
at
series, and
all.
we'll be like, it
Yeah.
won't acknowledge it. But actually, Kingpin and Spider-Man are such foes together that
Mm.
actually you would love for that to be a thing. And I get that's where you kind of match Daredevil together. And actually, the fact that you've had Daredevil and Spider-Man together from the last Spider-Man film is not is gives up gives optimism for that, doesn't it? But
Yeah.
yeah, I just
I
yeah, and the
understand
Vanessa as well.
that.
I didn't think they didn't really that last episode. One of the other reasons why it was disappointing is Matt seemed to just like, oh, okay, I'll forget about Vanessa. Bye bye. I've got Karen again. And actually, it didn't actually then go into that. Had Vanessa started to figure out that he's Daredevil? There was no. It just. I didn't think in the last episode that kind of Matt Murdock Vanessa relationship was just completely just sidelined because Karen's back. Bye bye. It just didn't. I'm not sure. There was a few. I think we just had unanswered. It was just a bit disappointing that last episode. I think the middle bit where there's an action scene was good,
Mm.
but it didn't really give you the tensions across different characters that we probably would have that
Yeah.
I'd have hoped for. That I just felt really, the scene before, the episode before when Matt gets shot. There's that Vanessa and Matt relationship's like really at the heart of it, and then the last episode he meets Karen and he's like, bye bye, see you later, and it just felt a bit of a disappointing, really.
I think we've still got a bit to explore there. I mean, when it comes to romance, I think the show could get a bit of mileage out of a bit more from that. I don't know your opinion on Karen and Matt or Karen and Punisher. They had a major romance between
Yeah.
all of them throughout the Netflix show in season 2 and season 3. But Matt, like, he's never tied down. Like, he was just banging She-Hulk in the She-Hulk show. Like, Matt as a character is someone who gets around a fair bit, and I think the show could use a bit more of that, maybe. Seeing more of the Matt. Like, there was one episode where, and you see it, blink and you miss it, but there's a comment he makes about getting, as a lawyer, he was like flirting with one of the ladies at work to get something he wanted, and it's, he's not afraid to weaponize his sexuality in that way. But as a whole, this show, very strong. I'm more excited for season 2. I think there is a bit mileage they can get out of a few other things. I think some elements are just not written as strong as others. I think it's a great show on the whole, though.
It's definitely one of my favorite Marvel shows.
Yeah,
because what I think is key. I think for a Marvel show or a Marvel film to really land at the minute, it's got to have a sense of style and a sense of charisma through it. And that's where when I said I didn't particularly like the latest Captain America film, it didn't really have that kind of style or charisma to it. I don't think Falcon and Winter Soldier as a series
I don't think it had a
style and
identity.
charisma to it. Well, yeah, it's the identity, isn't it?
I think Falcon and Winter Soldier very much did.
Agatha
it
all
understood fundamentally what the show was supposed to be. This was Sam choosing and discovering that he is worthy of the mantle outside of any external forces trying to tell him no. And that, I thought, was a brilliant story. It came out around COVID, so the stuff with the villains, the flag smashers, and that was what made the show fall apart for me, because you can tell that a lot of that was like reshot and had to be due to political events at the time. They had to remove a bunch of it. But yeah, you're right. A Brave New World, it was really strong as a film. I enjoyed it, but it did lack a lot of a specific message or identity. It was very much banking on the great performance from Harrison Ford and Anthony Mackie, which was great, but as a aesthetic feature, it felt like it was trying to be a few different things and never solidified itself into one. Daredevil, I think, as a show, is one that we can see is warming back up into solidly being what we kind of knew it to be.
Probably more likely, it feels like this is a series which has got real legs. I imagine after a season 2, we'll want a season 3. There's not many other Marvel series where there've been kind of individual kind of stories that get you from A to B. This one's got, you just got, I mean, it's already proved itself with having 3 really strong series. This is almost the 4th series of Daredevil and you still want more. It just kind of shows how A, good the characters are, but B, the opportunity it is to kind of take things forward. Even from it comes to the kind of intro sequence where you've got the kind of Devil of the Stone and all that kind of stuff. It's just cool. And Daredevil is an ace character. I've got a picture of him there.
Yeah.
It is. I agree. It's really strong, but it's definitely one of my favorite Marvel series that there are.
Yeah. Final point, and then we'll get into some of the questions. Is that my question to you, actually? Did you think that Foggy was dead? So there was a lot of speculation because there was a number behind him on like a door or something that referenced a comic book where Foggy fakes his own death. Were you worried at all, or did you think that Foggy was going to come back?
No,
would you want him to?
No, I think this is one of those examples where you get loads of conspiracy theories, and I'm sure they've probably created it like that because they want people to talk about it. But
and speculate,
you just expect to be disappointed because those things never come. Those theories never come about, do they? I didn't get a sense. I think because you knew there'd been recuts and because they'd added bits in, I think the chance of. I think you probably thought Karen was going to come back, but I probably just did think Foggy was dead. Did you think he was going to come back?
No, I thought that would have gone against the show so heavily about what Matt's going through, and it would have kind of derailed the story massively into being a bit pointless if Foggy came back. I love Foggy. I do feel bad that they just killed him off straight away. It felt disappointing. I hope he can come back. There's thoughts that he could come back as kind of a thought in Matt's head, similar to the way Punisher was talking about. Well, not necessarily, no, but thinking about the way Punisher talks about how his son was like in his head whenever he was killing, saying, "Yeah, go get him." And we've seen from season 2 and 3 of Daredevil that he has like these haunting voices in his head. We see him interact with Fisk and his dad, and loads of other characters where they're just figments of his head. So it wouldn't be outlandish for him to be talking to himself in that way. And that would be a really nice way for Foggy to come back, because they always like joint at the hip. So it's sad that they killed off Foggy so much. And I would like to see him come back a bit more.
From the Netflix series,
even if it is just the overarching presence.
Where he was really good is the court stuff. So, you know, usually had Matt going off and being Daredevil, and he'd do a lot of the kind of Solicitor Law bit in the middle. And I think it's a bit of a shame, really, you don't have Foggy. But
yeah,
shows have to move on a little bit, don't they? You kind of
and I think, you know what, it's got a difficult job of trying to not only live up to that show, but re-identify itself as its own show. So I think having Karen and Foggy not there helps, because otherwise it would just be constantly compared to, well, how is different to their relationship in the show in this way, or it's written differently. So I think, you know, you've got to establish Matt separately. It is a different show. It's a new iteration of this series. Yeah, cool. Okay, we have a few questions that we can get into. So so this is from you guys listening. You sent us in a few different questions about your opinions on the show and some questions for us to answer. So we'll just do a few of those quickly. This one we've kind of answered a bit. May just be one of the best Disney Plus shows so far, but that's as a newcomer to Daredevil. If you guys have seen the Netflix series as well, how does it hold up with that expectation in mind? So we kind of touched on this a bit. I think, you know, it's not written or visually like to the high quality that I think the Netflix show is, but it's getting there. And I think a lot of that is because they had to restructure the show a lot. Like, you can tell a lot of the sets are sound studios where you go, oh, this is clearly a set that's been made for the show. Rooms aren't this spacious. Oh, there's clearly going to be a fight scene here because you've got this big open space that you're about to move to. But I'm still enjoying it. You know, I think there's a lot of space now where it can really move into the rest of the MCU properly.
There was always a question with the Netflix ones of how does it tie in with some of this stuff. It came out at the time when the original Avengers MCU film was coming out. So, I mean, it's good that question's been answered, but I think we've just said the excitement or opportunity of potentially having Daredevil with Spider-Man or some of those other characters, and Wilson Fisk being a kind of mayor in a world where you've got Spider-Man and some of the others gives hope. So I think that's a good thing. I mean, I do think the original Netflix series, particularly watched season 1 and 2. I think I watched season 3 ages ago, but can't remember it as well as seasons 1 or 2. They were really strong, weren't they? And it does feel like it's carried on some of that character, some of the kind of stuff that was really good with that. It feels like has continued, but more to come. So it's good.
Yeah, cool. All right. Next question then. Throughout this season of Daredevil, who was your favorite character?
I mean, of the main two, I mean, I thought Fisk was just cool. If I'm honest, I think Fisk was the one who he's such a good presence on screen. In terms of secondary characters that came into it, I did think Muse was really cool. Really good idea of a bad guy.
Definitely didn't overstay his welcome.
No, but I thought Muse was really cool, and particularly when you kind of found out who he was without the mask on. I thought that was good.
Well, in the comics, I believe it's from either the Wells or the Chip Zdarsky run of Daredevil. You never find out who Muse is. He's just like this Banksy style serial killer. So it actually added a lot, giving him a character, and it was. And also we saw him in episode 2 when he got the book signing. I don't know. I don't think there was one person who would think that wasn't Muse. Like, I saw him instantly and went, okay, cool. So we know who the bad guy is. And I'm glad the show didn't try and tease that out. Like, we knew from the start it was him. It was never a big mystery because it was kind of obvious. If you're aware of the trailer, if you know the Muse as a character from the trailer, you go, well, we know we've got a serial killer somewhere. And I thought the way he tied in was really nice as this kind of villain that was on its own but fit into the overall narrative. So that was really fun. I think for me, my favorite character throughout this show, I have to agree with you. It's Fisk. They were more solid on who they understood who this character was, what journey he was going to go on.
Steals the show a bit, doesn't he?
Vanessa's and Fisk's story was the most complete and solid in this season. I feel like toward the end they kind of lost what they were doing with Matt, and everything else kind of was just like going on haphazardly. But Fisk and Vanessa's story in particular, you understood it. It made sense to me. And I tell you what, you just can't. I thought when I started watching the Netflix show, you know, you're going to get sick of his line delivery and his voice, but you just can't get over his line delivery. Like, it's great. Like, just his voice and his vocality as Fisk is just so unique, but so terrifying.
And Jacob is available for acting roles, by the way, as well. If anybody after that, no, I think it's cool. No, definitely Kingpin steals the show a bit, really.
Okay, cool. Final question now. What do you want most from season 2? Because they are filming season 2 at the moment with some set picks, which confused me because obviously I came into the show as a binge quite late when the final few episodes were out, and so I was seeing loads of set photos of Charlie Cox in the black Daredevil suit, and I was like, and it has the big DD logo on it finally, and I was like, oh cool, we're gonna see that in this show, and I'm like, oh no wait, stupid, that's for season 2. not yet.
I'd like to see more of the court case drama of Matt being Matt, like he was in the bank Matt in the bank robbery episode, you know, him using some of his powers as Matt. I mean, you look at he's always on a bit of a Debbie Downer, isn't he, with for some reason. But I think seeing Matt being Matt and kind of that, we still want to see him being Daredevil, but Matt being Matt is where it's pretty cool. You know, using some of that stuff, because everyone underestimates him, and it's that kind of, you know, everybody underestimates a blind person or a disabled person, and Matt's just that's where he kind of is. Kind of really comes alive, doesn't he? And that's where his character's really cool, isn't it? You know, we've got loads of superheroes who can kick ass and, you know, have good fight scenes and do all those kind of wonders and stuff like that. You know, a lot of them have got their sight, to be fair. But Matt being Matt, either in his court cases or in those other bits, I think more of that would be good.
Yeah,
for me, that's what
I think. For me, give me Jessica Jones. Bring Jessica Jones back. She was the best. She had season 1 of Jessica Jones is debatably the best of the Netflix shows. Like, it's up there with the Daredevil season 1 and 3 for me. Like, it's so strong. Jessica Jones as a character is just so good. She'll fit into this world perfectly. I really wanted her to show up at the ending of the show with Weather in Josie's Bar. Like, that would be great. That would be ideal to me. Other than that, I can't think of anything major that I'm kind of looking for season 2.
So if you had a choice of Jessica Jones or Spider-Man in what, like, so Jessica Jones throughout the whole series or Spider-Man in one episode, what would you choose?
Well, I understand, right? I know the legality of this, so I know it's impossible for them to get Spider-Man in a Disney Plus stream in a show in live action. It can't happen. I know, which is sad because
don't spoil it. That you can't do what would you rather be based on legalities. It's what
I can, because it's unrealistic, because I know that won't happen. Like they've even
but
said,
if it could, okay,
like,
so Disney have I've just seen on my phone, they've just signed a deal.
I think it's Mark Winterbomber who runs Disney TV has said, like, we're allowed to use Spider-Man in animated form, but we're not allowed to use him in live action.
You can't avoid the answer. Okay, we're in a different world. We're in like Fantastic Four world. Right. You've got a full series Spider-Man where Jessica Jones is in every episode, or Spider-Man in one episode. What would you rather have?
Spider-Man in one episode, obviously. I just if it was up to me, Spider-Man 4 would be following this Mayor Fisk, New York grounded storyline in a nomad's lands, almost gang war, which I recently read actually, kind of event where I just want Spider-Man to team up with Daredevil. That's the team up I want. I understand they're not going to do that because of money, and they got to do the whole multiverse and that bollocks and Daredevil's from TV and stuff.
Well, we said that about the X-Men a few years ago. We said that
Daredevil did show up in No Way Home.
Yeah, well, we were saying this though, weren't we? Though about we said this about X-Men or Spider-Man years ago when the MCU first started. So these things can happen if people want it enough.
I want it.
I do too. I'd love to see Spider-Man and Daredevil together. They're such a cool team up.
But yeah, I think that kind of closes our thoughts on our review of Daredevil Born Again. On the whole, relatively positive. What's your rating out of 10? Give it a rating for the show.
8 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I'll give it a solid 7. Yeah, I've already.
Jacob, your 7 is you are more stingy with ratings typically than I am, so actually. So
well, I've given the original Netflix 3 seasons have a 9 for me. So that's really high. And it never quite hit that strength. But I've said it earlier. They restructured the show. They had to film a bunch of other stuff. And I think, you know what, for the most part, you can't tell this was 2 shows squashed together. And I think that's really commendable. But season 2, they know what they're doing. So let them go at it. Yeah, lovely. So that closes out our discussion on Daredevil Born Again. Anything else you want to plug?
Just one last thing for me, Jay, is Dadvice. It's
yes,
back.
We haven't done Dadvice
Don't do it every time. It's
the highly anticipated return that everyone's been asking for.
I don't, because this one's probably not great either. But it's themed around the fact that we've just been talking about Fantastic Four. So
okay,
the quotes that I've got are from a conversation between The Thing and Reed Richards, which is, "Reed, you old dictionary reading, double talking, rubber-boned egghead. What are you standing around here for? Let's go." And then Reed Richards says, "Ben, you hot-tempered, loudmouth, beetle-brained gargoyle. That's what I was waiting for you to say." And
oh, lovely.
The Dadvice bit to take from this is, let's go. Just do stuff. It's just a positive kind of
lovely.
pick me up. That I think.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Quite heated pick me up, but yeah,
still need to work on Dadvice.
I think
still work on it,
there's bits to find from it.
I tried to go with kind of just.
I appreciate
just
the voice. I like how the
positive...
Thing and Reed sound quite similar.
Well, they're the one kind of voice that I've got, but no,
you should do an audiobook. Everyone sounds the same.
My problem is all of whenever I think of Dadvice, I always go with like, let's try and motivate and be like really positive and give Jacob some real motivation, which is
that's not necessary.
It's not really necessary, but it's just where I go to. So as you know, the Thing says, let's go. It's just whatever we do, let's go.
Yeah,
and maybe a good ending at the end of the podcast. Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. Let's leave. I'm bored of talking to you now. This has been my allocated discussion with you for the next week. So I'll see you again in a week, Dad, when we record again. Yeah. But cool. Thank you for listening. Remember to share, like, rate on Spotify. We're now on Apple as well. Send us any questions that you have on the Instagram at Dad Made Nerd Pod. We're on TikTok too. Do all of that lovely good stuff. And have a lovely rest of your day. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.